The rain didn't just fall, it drowned. Waves of water slammed the windshield as Nathan Hale's black Mercedes crawled down the quiet hilltop road. Trees bent under wind, streetlights flickered in the fog, and the world outside blurred into streaks of motion and gray, asterisk welcome to Heartfelt Stories, where every tale uncovers truth, emotion, and the twists that change lives. If you love stories that grip your heart and leave you thinking long after they end, you're in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. And trust me. This story, you'll want to watch until the very end. Nathan hadn't meant to take this detour. He just needed silence. The city had gotten too loud, too familiar. He was supposed to be in meetings downtown, discussing land deals and foundation grants. But instead, here he was halfway between guilt and impulse, steering toward nowhere. That's when he saw her, a figure on the shoulder of the road, barefoot, drenched, hunched forward with something bundled in her arms. Nathan slowed instinctively, wipers barely keeping up with the flood on the glass. As he neared, his headlights illuminated her fully, a young woman, soaked to the bone, her soaked dress clinging to thin limbs. In her arms, a baby wrapped. In a torn brown jacket, she wasn't waving for help. She was just standing there, like she had given up. Nathan pulled over. For a long moment, neither of them moved. She didn't approach the car. She only looked up slightly, her face pale beneath. Wet strands of hair, her eyes weren't pleading. They were tired. Not from the rain, from something much deeper. Nathan rolled the window down halfway. "Are you all right?" No answer. He opened the door, umbrella in hand, and stepped out. His shoes sank slightly into the water pooling on the side of the road. "You shouldn't be out here. You'll get sick," he said, voice lower now, uncertain. The woman flinched, adjusting the bundle in her arms. The baby didn't cry, just shifted softly under the soaked fabric. "Is there somewhere I can take you?" he asked. She shook her head. Nathan hesitated, searching her face. "Do you have anywhere to go?" She blinked slowly. "No." There was no tragedy in her tone, just fact. Like she'd stopped hoping someone would ask. He exhaled, looked over his shoulder. Less than half a mile away stood his unused vacation property, a guest house he hadn't entered in over a year, stocked, quiet, empty. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small silver key. "I have a place down the road," he said. "It's clean, safe. No one's there. You can stay tonight, rest, feed the baby." She didn't move. He extended the key slowly. "No one will bother you. There's food, blankets, a fireplace. You can lock the doors. I won't come back without warning." Her fingers hesitated, then reached out, brushing his hand as she took the key. Still, she said nothing. Nathan nodded once and stepped back toward his car, heart racing for reasons he couldn't explain. She watched him leave, standing still in the rain, her baby held tighter now. The key in her palm. As Nathan drove off, he checked the rearview mirror. She was already walking, not running, not hesitating. Just walking toward the house he had just given her. He didn't know her name. He didn't ask, but something about her felt familiar, and something inside him whispered, "You just invited something in." The house smelled like quiet, not dust, not mildew. Just stillness. The kind that only settles in places that haven't been lived in, only kept. The woman stepped inside slowly, cradling the baby in her arms. The door creaked softly behind her, then clicked shut. For a moment she didn't move. She just stood there, dripping onto the hardwood floor, staring at the warm golden glow of recessed lights. Someone had left them on, maybe weeks ago. Maybe longer. She looked down at the silver key still clutched in her palm, her fingers pale and trembling from the cold. No one just gives you a key. People gave blankets, sometimes food. A ride, maybe, but not a key. Not to a place like this. Not to a place with polished counters and clean linen and fresh wood stacked neatly beside the fireplace. She walked through the kitchen first, cautious, her steps soft. The baby shifted quietly in her arms, but didn't cry. The silence between them was sacred. The cabinets were full. The fridge, half-stocked, bottled water, canned food, dry formula. A stack of unopened letters sat on the counter, addressed to Nathan Hale. That was his name. She hadn't known it earlier. She hadn't asked. She moved into the living room, then the hallway, then stopped in front of a narrow mirror hanging by the coat rack. Her own reflection startled her. Gaunt hair clinging to her face. She barely looked human. Her eyes were too hollow for her age. She turned away. There was a room in the back with a crib, untouched, still with price tags on the frame. Another sign. This house had been meant for someone else. Maybe a life that never arrived. Maybe one that was lost before it could begin. She laid the baby down gently, her fingers lingering on the edge of the blanket, then sat beside the crib and exhaled. She didn't cry. She just exhaled. Across town, Nathan Hale sat in the back of his sleek black sedan, scrolling through emails. His assistant Marcy sat in the front passenger seat, reviewing the week's calendar. I canceled the 3 o'clock, she said, and moved the foundation call to Friday. He nodded absently. Marcy hesitated, then asked, "Do you want me to follow up on the woman from earlier?" Nathan looked up. "No, don't mention it again." Marcy paused. "You gave her a house key." "It's not important," he said firmly, "but it was a gesture," he cut in. "A good one." She blinked, surprised at the edge in his voice, then turned back to her tablet. Nathan looked out the window, watching the rain streak across the glass. "She needed something," he said, quieter now. "That's all." Back at the house, the woman stood again and began exploring. One room at a time. She wasn't planning to stay, but she didn't leave, not the next day. Not the next week. Not after she found what he left in the drawer. Nathan hadn't planned to return. That was the point. It had been a moment of impulse, a silent apology to no one in particular, and he expected it to vanish like all his attempts at goodness, forgettable and safe. But by the third morning, something tugged. A quiet discomfort. So he stopped at a market, picked up formula, a box of groceries, and 2 packs of fresh fruit, and made the drive to the vacation house. The rain had passed. The air was crisp, but the weight hadn't lifted. He parked in the gravel drive and approached slowly. Before he knocked, he noticed something strange. The porch had been swept. Inside, the air was warm. The scent of lemon cleaner and something baking wafted toward him. Nathan stepped in cautiously, groceries in hand. The house had changed, shoes tucked neatly by the door, towels hung evenly. A soft baby blanket folded on the couch. The house no longer looked vacant. It looked lived in. From the kitchen, a soft voice called out, "You can come in." He rounded the corner, and there she was. Same woman, same pale skin, same tired eyes. But now her hair was pulled back. She wore a sweater that looked borrowed from the closet. The baby rested quietly in a sling across her chest, calm, eyes closed. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said. Nathan set the bags down on the counter. "I wasn't sure I would." There was a pause, then she smiled, just enough to show she wasn't afraid. "Thank you for the food." He nodded, unsure of what to say. "The place looks ... good." "I used to clean houses," she said simply. "I like order." He looked around again. "You've made it feel warm." Another pause. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, just for a beat. "Ilara." It rolled off her tongue like something rehearsed. Nathan smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you, Ilara." She tilted her head. "And you, Nathan?" "Of course." He caught it, that strange tone. She already knew. He studied her, unsure whether he felt comforted or unnerved. The baby shifted slightly. "Still didn't cry. She's very quiet," he said. "She listens," Ilara answered, brushing a hand over the baby's head. Nathan tried not to stare. Something about the child unnerved him. Not in fear, but in stillness. Babies cried, fidgeted. This one ... "I can leave if you need the house," Ilara said, interrupting the silence. "No, it's yours for now. Stay as long as you need." "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft, grateful, but her eyes stayed on him a second too long. Nathan picked up his keys. "There's extra firewood out back." She nodded. "I saw." As he left, he glanced back once. She was still watching him, expression calm, but focused, measured. It wasn't fear in her eyes. It was calculation, and her smile was still on her face. Marcy tilted her tablet sideways and frowned. She was in her office at the Halle Foundation headquarters, third floor. Corner window, filtered water, always chilled. Nathan's tech systems sensed across all his properties, including the vacation home. She wasn't paid to snoop. But routine security audits were her job. And something didn't add up. The footage between 1:12 a.m. and 4:47 a.m. was missing. Not corrupted, missing. A perfect blackout. She tapped through the logs again. The cameras hadn't gone offline in over a year, not even during the last storm. But now, just days after Nathan gave his keys to a stranger, 3 hours gone in. The middle of the night. She double-checked before calling him. Nathan answered from his penthouse, sipping black coffee, his back to the skyline. Yeah? I just finished your system report, Marcy said, voice steady. You know the vacation property? The exterior and hallway cams were disabled last night. He didn't respond right away. I'm guessing it wasn't a power outage, she added. No, he replied. There was no storm last night. She waited for him to ask the obvious question. He didn't. I thought you said no one was staying there, she pressed. I didn't say that. A pause. She's harmless, he said finally. Don't worry about it, Marcy blinked. Nathan, you gave a stranger the key to your home, and now the cameras are off for 3 hours in the middle of the night. I know what I'm doing, he said, sharper now. She exhaled. All right, it's your house. Exactly. He hung up. That night the house was quiet. Ilara stood in the guest room, baby asleep in the crib nearby. Her hair was loose, her face softer in the yellow lamp glow. On the bed lay a thick, weathered envelope sealed in string. She ran her fingers over the edges before slipping it into the bottom drawer of the knitstand. She placed it carefully beneath a folded towel and closed the drawer with slow, deliberate motion. Then she walked into the hall. The baby didn't cry. She never cried. Ilara stood outside the closed bedroom door and stared into the hallway mirror for a long time. She didn't blink. Back in the city, Nathan couldn't sleep. He paced his study, sipping from a glass he didn't finish. Something, Marcy said, kept repeating. You gave a stranger the key to your home. He sat down and pulled up the system dashboard on his phone. The cameras were back on. Streaming normally. He tapped the hallway feed. Ilara wasn't in it, but something about the way the shadows moved down that corridor. He set the phone down and ran a hand over his face. He didn't regret giving her the key, but he didn't know why he had done it either. And that was starting to bother him. In the guest room, the envelope rested silently in the drawer, sealed, waiting. Inside it was a name he hadn't heard in years, and a photo he'd paid to have destroyed. Nathan hadn't meant to stay long. Just a quick check-in, maybe leave more supplies, reassure himself that everything was fine. Normal, innocent. But as he stepped inside the house again, something pulled him deeper. The silence. The warmth. The way it felt less like a house and more like a memory that didn't belong to him. Ilara greeted him with her usual calm. Her sweater sleeves rolled slightly, her movements slow but graceful. There was no sign of anxiety, no urgency. Just control? The baby's asleep, she said softly. Nathan nodded, glancing toward the crib tucked into the corner of the living room. But the baby wasn't asleep. She was awake, watching. She lay still beneath the blanket, her wide, dark eyes fixed on him, her face expressionless, utterly calm. Her hands barely moved. Her chest rose and fell so slowly it was almost imperceptible. He walked closer. She doesn't cry, he said. No, Ilara replied from behind him. She doesn't need to. He glanced back. She's very still. She listens. Nathan knelt beside the crib, studying the child. Her gaze didn't shift, not once. Even as he leaned in, even as he smiled awkwardly, hoping to break the tension with a soft gesture. Nothing. Not fear, not joy. Not even curiosity. Just presence. Is she always like this? He asked. Ilara stepped closer. She's a miracle. He looked up at her. She saved me, she said, voice almost reverent. Before her, I was broken. People passed by me like I was glass. But when she looked at me, she saw. Nathan stood, unsettled. She's very aware. She sees what others hide, he laughed nervously. That's a lot for a baby, Ilara smiled faintly. She's not like others. Nathan turned back to the crib, but something shifted inside him. A flicker, a flash, another baby. Another house. A scream that never left the walls. He blinked, and it was gone. He shook his head, the image lingering like a migraine. He hadn't thought about that in years. He'd buried it. Carefully, he walked to the window, needing air. I think I'll head out, he said, not turning around. She likes you. Ilara replied. He didn't answer as he stepped outside. The baby's stare burned between his shoulder blades. Even behind the closed door, he felt her eyes. That night, Nathan poured himself a drink he didn't finish. He pulled open a drawer he hadn't touched in ages and found a photo of a girl. With dark curls and a crooked smile, she had his eyes. He put the photo face down on the desk and whispered to no one. I thought you were gone. The house was waking up in ways Nathan had never permitted. He noticed it first in small things. A vase moved slightly to the left. A faint scent of lavender coming from a room that hadn't been opened in over a year. A light left on in the east. Corridor, though he'd sworn it was off the day before. Then came the piano. It was his late wife's, covered in dust. Sealed in her old studio, a sunlit space Nathan never stepped foot in. The door had been locked. Or so he thought, one morning during a drop-off of more groceries. He heard it. 3 notes, soft, hesitant, familiar. By the time he entered the room. The piano was closed, untouched, and Ilara was standing by the window, rocking the baby gently. You shouldn't be in here, he said sharply. She turned to him, calm as always. It was never locked. His heart kicked. Yes, it was. Ilara tilted her head slightly. Are you sure? Nathan didn't answer. He stepped closer, eyes darting to the room's contents. A dusty easel, a small painting of a lakeside sunset, a cracked photo frame with an image missing. Why are you in here? Ilara looked down at the baby. She likes music. That's not the point, he snapped. You went through a private door. Ilara walked slowly to the piano and placed a soft hand on it. Nothing in this house is private anymore. Nathan's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? She looked at him now. Really looked. You left the key with me, Nathan. Not just to the house, to you. He took a step back. Yesterday I found the basement door unlocked, she continued. It's cold down there, dark, but the safe's still in place. He felt the blood drain from his face. You opened the safe? I didn't need to, Ilara said softly. I already knew what was inside, Nathan clenched his jaw. You're pushing boundaries. No, she replied. You buried them. I'm just uncovering what you hid. He wanted to raise his voice to shout, but all he could do was whisper, How? Ilara stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Because the woman who painted that, she pointed to the lakeside canvas, wasn't someone who wanted to disappear. Nathan's fingers curled into fists. She never left you, did she? Ilara asked, voice like silk wrapping around a knife. Not completely, his voice broke. She was sick. She was afraid. He shook his head. You don't understand. I understand better than you think, Ilara said, lowering her eyes to the baby. And so does she? Nathan stared at them both, Ilara, calm and poised, and the child, who blinked once and stared right back at him. This wasn't the girl he had handed keys to in the rain. This was someone else, someone who knew. He turned and left the studio. Without another word behind him, Ilara whispered to the baby, so softly he almost didn't hear it. Secrets always find their way upstairs. Nathan didn't return to the house for 3 days. He needed distance, space from her voice. Her eyes, that child who stared through him like glass. He worked late, slept little, and tried to convince himself that he was still in control. He could take the key back any time, but on the 4th morning, he found himself standing in the driveway again. The door was unlocked. Inside, Ilara was waiting. She stood in the center of the living room, the baby asleep on her chest, her arms folded loosely as if she'd known he'd come. Did you find what you were looking for? She asked softly. He didn't respond. He walked past her, straight to the kitchen, opened the fridge just to have something to do. Ilara followed, her voice low. She was wearing a red scarf that night. You told her not to wait up. Nathan froze, hand still gripping the fridge door. She sat in the studio until 2 in the morning, Ilara continued. You never came back. His voice was barely a whisper. How do you know that? Ilara tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. Because I was there, Nathan turned slowly. That's not possible. She asked me to come. Said she didn't feel safe anymore. He stepped forward, breath shallow. You're lying. Ilara's voice didn't waver. She told me. She wanted to leave you. That she didn't want to be buried in this house. He flinched. She stepped closer, not out of menace, but out of certainty. She told me she was afraid you'd lose control. That one day you'd go too far. Nathan's throat tightened. His hands began to shake. She fell, he said, almost to himself. I tried to catch her, Ilara nodded slowly. It was an accident, wasn't it? Silence. He looked up at her. His eyes were red. Wide. Distant. You don't understand, he whispered. She wouldn't listen. She pushed me first. But she hit her head, Ilara said softly. Didn't she? Nathan sank into the nearest chair like his legs had betrayed him. I called no one, he muttered. I wrapped her in sheets. I told myself it would go away, that I could bury the moment. And you did, Ilara said, voice like silk wrapping around a dagger. But the house remembers, and now so do you. Nathan looked up at her, completely unraveling. Who are you? Ilara gave the faintest smile. I'm just someone who was there. She turned away, gently rocking the baby. Nathan sat frozen. In place, he could no longer tell if the tremble in his bones was from guilt or recognition. Marcy didn't tell anyone where she was going, not even her husband. She just waited until the office emptied for the weekend, grabbed Nathan's spare gate code from the archives, and drove. It wasn't just the missing footage or the way. Nathan avoided her questions. It was the way he spoke her name after that last call, clipped, uncertain, like he was somewhere else. She needed to see for herself. By the time she reached the vacation house, dusk was settling in. The air smelled like pine and something faintly chemical like bleach. The driveway was empty. The porch light flicked on automatically as she stepped up. The front door was locked, but the garage wasn't. 5 minutes later, she was inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Everything in place. No clutter, no dishes. No trace of Ilara except for the faint scent of lavender. Still clinging to the hallway, she moved toward the baby's room. There, in the corner, sat the crib. Empty. No child. No blanket, just a folded towel at the base. Her heart kicked. She dropped to her knees and slid her hand beneath the mattress slats. At first, she felt nothing. Then her fingers caught paper. She pulled it out, a wrinkled envelope, soft from time and touch. The name on the front made her hands go cold. Claire Halle, Nathan's wife. Marcy slowly opened it, afraid even to breathe. The handwriting was uneven, hurried, but unmistakably real. If you're reading this, I didn't leave him. I ran. I wanted to disappear, but not like this. He knows. He always knew. I told him everything. And then I wasn't safe anymore. If anything happens to me, this house will remember. So Marcy read it twice, then folded it carefully, her mind spinning. Claire had written this after the date she was declared dead. 2 weeks after, but how? Where had she gone? Had she ever really died at all? Marcy stood and backed away from the crib, her hands trembling. That's when she heard it, a soft sound, breathing. She turned and saw Ilara standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. I locked the front, Ilara said calmly. How did you get in? Marcy swallowed. I needed answers. Ilara stepped closer. And did you find any? Marcy held up the letter. Enough, Ilara didn't react. Then maybe it's time you start asking the right questions. Where's Claire? Marcy asked, voice cracking. Ilara gave the faintest smile. She never left. Nathan sat on the edge of the armchair in the studio, his wife's old studio, his hands clasped, eyes distant. The room around him felt like a living memory, and Ilara stood quietly in the doorway, the baby cradled gently in her arms. You never asked her name, she said. Nathan didn't look up. I assumed it wasn't important. Ilara stepped into the room. The floor creaked under her bare feet. It is, he rubbed his face. You said she saved you. She did, Ilara replied. But she isn't mine. That made him look up. What? Ilara lowered her gaze to the baby, who blinked slowly and stared at Nathan with unsettling calm. I found her 3 months ago, she said. Wrapped in a hospital sheet outside a clinic that had been burned to the ground. No mother, no ID, just fire and ash and silence. Nathan frowned. Did you just took her? No, Ilara said. She found me. I was sleeping under the stairwell of a bus station, and when I opened my eyes, she was there. No cries, just watching me. He stared at the baby. And you named her? Ilara nodded. Clarity. The word hung in the air like incense. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Why? Because she sees, Ilara said simply. Through lies. Through guilt. Through the mess people make when they think no one's watching. That's not a name, Nathan said, shaking his head. That's a symbol. She doesn't need a name, Ilara replied. She is the moment people can't hide anymore. Nathan's hands began to tremble. I don't understand what this is, he whispered. You show up in the rain. You know things you shouldn't. You talk like you've been watching me for years. Ilara stepped closer. I haven't been watching. I've just been listening. He looked up at her. To what? To the truth you tried to bury? Nathan rose suddenly, pacing. Enough of this mystical garbage. You don't know anything about me. I know what you did, she said, gently rocking Clarity. And I know you're still trying to convince yourself it wasn't your fault. He stopped. I know what your wife told you the night she disappeared, Ilara continued. And I know you didn't mean for it to go that far. His shoulders slumped. She hit her head, he murmured. She slipped. Clarity cooed softly, almost like she was exhaling grief that didn't belong to her. Nathan turned to them, his voice crumbling. Who are you? I'm not here to punish you, Ilara said. I'm here to show you what happens when you run from yourself for too long. He stared at the baby again, and for the first time, she blinked. Slow, deliberate blink. And Nathan began to cry, not loud. Not broken. Just a quiet collapse of a man who could no longer outrun the truth. The news broke quietly, an article buried halfway down the morning feed, tagged local, cold case update. Nathan clicked on it with a numb finger, his heart already racing before he read the headline. Police reopen investigation into disappearance of Claire Halle, wife of prominent philanthropist. He couldn't breathe. They used her name, they used his. There was a new detective on the case. Anonymous evidence had prompted the department to revisit the timeline. The house had been mentioned, so had his name. The article was vague, purposefully, but Nathan could read between the lines. Someone had spoken. He rushed to the house. It was too quiet. The living room was untouched. The baby's crib still sat in the corner. But Ilara was gone, he called out once, twice. Nothing. The back door was locked. The kitchen spotless. The rooms cleared of any trace she'd ever been there. No clothes, no bottles, no scent of lavender. Not even the painting his wife left unfinished, but on the kitchen counter. There it was, the key, the exact one he'd handed her in the rain, laid gently beside a half-full baby bottle. The formula was still warm. Nathan picked it up with shaking hands. He opened the drawer where she once placed the envelope, empty. He stepped into the hallway and looked into the mirror one she used to stare at. His own reflection met him, but now it looked tired, haunted. He whispered to it, unsure why. Where did you go? The house had never felt more unfamiliar. He wandered from room to room, searching for something he wasn't sure was even real. Anymore, she'd disappeared the same way she came, without sound. Without warning, but not without a message. On the floor near the crib, Nathan spotted a folded note. No envelope, no signature. Just 5 words written in careful, even strokes. You kept the door open. He sank into the nearest chair, the key still in his hand. He remembered the way Ilara had said it. You left the key with me, not just to the house, to you. And now he was alone again with questions circling like vultures. Why had she come? What had she known? And why leave the baby bottle warm like she knew he'd be back? He stared at The key for a long time, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know whether he'd given something away, or if something had been taken from him. The truth didn't break gently. It arrived like a stone through glass. Nathan sat across from Marcy at her desk, the manila file trembling in her hands. Her eyes were rimmed red, whether from exhaustion or disbelief, he couldn't tell. She pushed it toward him like it burned. I ran everything, she said, voice tight. I needed to know who she was. And she's not who you think. He flipped the folder open. Name: Elara Monroe. Occupation: former licensed psychiatric nurse. Last place of employment: St. Dymphna Behavioral Center. Notable patient: Claire Hale, his wife. Nathan's breath left him. Your wife was admitted 6 months before she vanished, Marcy whispered. She used a false name, but Elara, she was her primary caretaker. Confidential records say Claire became obsessed with the idea that you were watching her. She was scared of you. Nathan's hands trembled. The office around him warped, distant. How? Why didn't I know? He asked. Because you weren't supposed to. It made sense now. The calm demeanor, the unsettling grace. The way Elara always knew what buttons to press. She hadn't shown up by chance. She'd come knowing every fracture in his life. She played you, Nathan, Marcy said gently, but his voice was hollow. Or maybe she saw me. Later, Nathan visited a private lab. He needed one more answer. DNA analysis. Infant. Subject A. No parental match to Nathan Hale. No maternal match to Elara Monroe. He stared at the report, unable to feel the relief it should have brought, if the child wasn't hers. And wasn't his. Then who was she? That night he sat in his darkened study, the fireplace unlit, the house cold. He remembered Elara's voice. She saved me. What had she meant? The baby Clarity had been left at a clinic that burned down the same week Elara disappeared. A clinic linked to St. Dymphna, a place Elara once worked. Had she rescued the child from there? Or was it something darker? Nathan held the babies. Bottle in one hand, the file in the other, everything he believed about Elara unraveled. She wasn't a beggar. She wasn't desperate. She was deliberate, a woman who wore vulnerability like armor, who used compassion like a scalpel, and yet he couldn't bring himself to hate her, because somewhere in the chaos, she'd told him more truth than anyone ever had. Asterisk. The mansion was quiet now, too quiet for a place that once held so many unspoken things. Nathan walked its empty halls one last time, his footsteps echoing against cold marble and polished wood. Paintings had been removed. Furniture was wrapped in plastic. The baby's bottle still sat on the windowsill. Collecting dust, he didn't look back as he handed the keys to the realtor. It's time, he said simply. No explanation. No sentiment. Marcy stood outside, waiting. You sure? She asked. Softly. Nathan didn't answer. He just walked to the car, the house shrinking behind him in the rearview mirror. 2 weeks later, in a different part of the city, a new couple moved in. They loved the architecture, praised the arched ceilings, and the view from the guest room. They didn't know what had been left behind. Until the footage appeared. It came in the form of a USB mailed anonymously to Nathan's new office. No note, no return address. Just a timestamp and one file name. Clarity.mp4. He locked his door before pressing play. The security footage showed the hallway grainy, black and white. The night Elara vanished. She stepped into frame slowly, holding the baby against her chest, wrapped in that same knitted shawl. Her face was calm, serene even. She looked up, right into the camera, and then she smiled, not a smile of warmth. Not even malice. It was a knowing smile. One that whispered, you were never the one watching. She raised the baby slightly toward the lens as if offering her to the house, or to something beyond it. The baby didn't move, didn't blink, and then Elara said something, lips moving slowly. Nathan leaned in. He rewound the clip, trying to read her mouth. Some gifts come with locks you were never meant to open. Static followed. Then darkness. Nathan sat motionless, sweat cold against his back. He didn't send the footage to anyone. Didn't mention it to Marcy. Instead, he deleted it. Or tried to, every time. He restarted his computer. The file was there again. Clarity.mp4. He stopped using that computer. Months passed. People moved on. The story faded, but the house remembered. Neighbors claimed they sometimes saw a woman in the upper window staring silently, holding something small in her arms. The couple who bought the place moved out after just 90 days. The baby won't sleep, the wife told a neighbor. She stares into corners, like someone's there. Eventually, the house went back on the market. Nathan never drove past it again, but sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'd wake from dreams he couldn't explain, of water dripping, of a child's eyes unblinking, of keys falling to the floor. He'd reach for the light dot and find the bottle. Back on his nightstand, he never kept one there. Some gifts come with locks you were never meant to open.